Happy Monday as we're getting closer and closer to the holidays. I am normally the person who's completely ready, and I have a Google spreadsheet of all of my Christmas gifts. And because I spent 6 weeks in California and no time here, I'm not ready. So I'm madly preparing this week. Welcome to the A's to Z's call of building a real estate team. And this call, just for reference, is for anyone who already has one or is thinking about starting one. It can be anywhere on that scale. And just anything that you need in reference to that, I can either create the agenda for today, or I do like to start with anybody who has something. Hang on, I'm gonna let one more person in that they want to bring to the call and have an agenda that they would like to discuss. So let's start with that. Is there anyone who has something that they would like to particularly discuss today on today's call?
Well, Bruce and I are getting ready to start a team, but I'm comfortable with whatever everybody else wants, because we've got a coach for that specifically through Workman's. But yes,
Who did you end up with? I didn't know who you ended up with. Who'd you get?
at Workman's. Oh my God, Melissa.
Which one?
I can't remember. She
Haley?
owns her own little boutique brokerage.
Is it Haley?
Is it what?
Haley?
No, maybe. One more last name. Do you have it?
Hang on. I'll think. I'll find
Let me look at my email. I'll look at my emails. I'll let you know.
Okay.
Hey, Selena, would you recommend that, or do you think we'll get what we need from this call?
You mean a Workman coach?
Yeah.
Well, I
Get a
always
coach.
recommend a Workman
Get a
coach.
coach. Get a coach. I don't have a coach, but get a coach. Yeah.
Speaking as a Workman coach.
Yeah.
Listen, guys, I think coaching is incredibly important. I was coached by Verl Workman, who is Workman coach. When we talk about hard coach, be coached by the man who runs the company really, really hard. I think there's a lot of value in it. It's just a higher level of accountability, right? You're getting 2 coaching sessions a month, where you're really having someone who is holding you to what you say you want to do, right? So there's much higher level of accountability. Depends on what you're looking for, and we can talk more about that offline. But it is,
And it is Melissa Haley.
it is okay.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. There's just a higher level of accountability to that, and they can, it depends on what you're coming into it for, right? So I'm a master coach at Workman, and I coach mostly at this level. It's large teams or large brokerages, and they come to me for different things. Sometimes it's increased production. Most of the time at this point, it's a little bit more than that. And sometimes it's people wanting to get their life back. They might have scaled up significantly at this point, and now they're like, hello, I need to breathe again. Oh, do I have children and a spouse? I'd like to see them again. Something like that. But at the beginning, when I first started coaching, it was agents who were just starting to grow and getting to that point, or we wanted to double production. So it kind of, depends on what you're coming into it for. And we can talk more about that offline, Will, if you want to.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Yep. Anybody else who have something they'd like to bring to today's agenda on building a team? Anything specific? Somebody maybe, Jason? Yep.
Yeah. So build a team. Need to build it more. I need to get
You've
some
got a
more
couple
agents.
folks, right?
What's that?
You have a couple folks already, right?
Yeah, we have 1, 2, 3. We have 4 plus me and my wife, and we're both real estate agents. We have 4, and we need to go more. Using Follow Boss. Things are going great. I gave them, they've got like 400 leads over the weekend just because we do big events. Oh yeah, and they're all on it. And like last weekend too, they're on the phones. I'm trying to get out of production, but I'm realizing like I might need to get back into production just a little bit.
Okay.
One thing that I'd love to, maybe this would help all of us, is there's different personalities in hiring. And I am a very specific type of coach. Even me and my wife have talked about this. Like I came from a martial arts background. I used to do like a lot of like MMA stuff. So I'm just used to people being very hard on me. And I just had one agent kind of pull me to the side, and we had to do a one-on-one, and she's like, this is hard, do that. Like, I feel singled out, and I feel this, and I feel that. And I took it and I was very gentle, but in my head, I'm like, if you're whining about this, you're gonna fall apart when things get really hard. Because I mean, I've had my best friend almost make me cry on a deal. Like we were in a deal and he's just like, you're smarter than this. You know, stuff that I'm just like, man, you're mean. Anyway, all to say is different personalities. I feel like if I start coaching differently for everyone, the driven, I hate to say it like this, they're all driven, but I might have to back off ones that it's working for just to cater to this one, or do I cater to this one? You get what I'm saying? Or do this one just not make it? Because honestly, me and my wife are like, she's not going to make it. I believe that she will, but my wife's like, she's not going to make it.
I have a question to that, Jason, if you
Yeah.
don't mind. So do you and your wife, because it's obviously me and Bruce, me and my husband, do you guys interview together or the initial meet together?
No. So my wife's kind of on the behind the scenes. She is a real estate agent. She's moved a lot of properties. We have a 3-year-old. My wife is focused on being mom and but also helping me with real estate and bouncing ideas. And she's also my driving force. Whenever I don't have an appointment and I'm really excited, I'm like, I have a free day. She's like, we'll get to work. That's literally what she said. No, we did an interview. I interview individually, and then I do a 3-phase interview. So first is just like, hey, I make sure that they reach out to me. So anybody that says, oh, reach out, give me a call. I'm looking to join the team. No, I literally tell them, you call me. That's
Okay.
like one of the biggest things that I do this process. I don't know if I want to take, is this okay, Selena, if I just keep going?
Really okay.
I do a 3-phase thing. So they have to reach out to me.
Mhm.
And then I say, hey, send me your resume. So they reach out, we talk, we do a little bit of like get to know each other, probably like 10 to 15 minutes, like joking around, laughing, you know, that type of deal. And then I say, send me your resume and let's set up an interview. And then I set up an interview with them. And then I do like, hey, why do you want to be on the team? Like ask them those type of questions. I also I kind of cheated. I have friends that are part of the Workman coaching process, and they have interview questions. I used some of those. I've also owned businesses before, so I kind of knew how to interview people. I have them do that. So I started asking them questions. And then I say, okay, cool. So far, so good. You know, I want you to do the 5 love languages. I do a 5 love language test for them. I say, you have to do this. I've had some resistance. And I tell them this, sorry, like I don't tell them sorry. I just say, oh yeah, so this is for me to know how you communicate. Oh, well, this is really personal. And I say, yeah, it really is.
Okay, I love it.
The end. Yeah, I have them do that. And then I also have them do a DISC assessment. And frankly, I don't know how to read those really well. But
We'll talk about it in a minute.
yeah, I need to. Like I read them, I browse them over just so I know where they're at.
Yeah.
Because I mean, frankly, it's not like a DISC assessment is going to tell me whether they're going to make it or not, but at least I know if they're super organized, then I know that. Or if they're super just ADD, then I know that, or wherever they're at. I have them do that. And then the next phase is I bring them back again to do one more interview of just like, hey, so what do you think? What do you think? And I give them the contract by the second interview. I give them the contract. So then we do the 3rd interview. And the 3rd interview is to sit down with them about the contract, because the contract is heavy. It's like 13 pages, 14 pages.
Okay.
It outlines, hey, we're going to do daily huddles. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. It also outlines their commission structure, which is sometimes 40%, like they take home 40%. Sometimes they take home 50%. I do have one agent that takes home 60%, but I did bring up, if anybody finds out about that, you go down to them, not they come up to you. So I did bring, and I think I may have got that during this coaching. But I did say, so nobody knows about the structure. And if anybody starts complaining about it, you go to the lowest structure. So they all know that. And then we go through asking them any questions and expectations. And that's another thing that I do is I ask them, what do you expect out of a coach? Like, what do you expect out of this team? So that way we just have clear expectations. There's no surprises. Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry. I gotta say bye to my wife and son.
Go ahead,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. So there's a couple things that he said that I want to touch base on, that when he comes back, we'll definitely talk about. First thing I'm going to recommend for anybody hiring, and I wish I'd done this sooner and heard about it sooner. If you have not read the book, The WHO Method, I suggest that you get it. WHO, The WHO Method. I'm trying to see if I actually have. So I totally switched my recruiting style and the way that I interview people using the WHO method. So I used to be with KW for years, and I was doing their whole recruit select plan for a long time. If anybody's ever been with KW, and they have this whole thing with the interviewing structure, you know, the whole thing, right? And I did that for years. And someone introduced me to this book, The WHO Method. It's a completely different way of doing it. And now I actually have them somewhere. I created interview sheets that I now use, and there are multiple interviews, just like what Jason does, right? So it's usually 4 interviews before someone gets through the process with me. And each one, and now I have a cheat sheet. I have them all the time in a file folder. My office currently looks like it blew up, so that's why I can't find it right now. I haven't been home in forever. But I have them in there based on each interview. Interview 1, interview 2, interview 3. And I designed it based off of reading that book and what those questions are in the WHO method. And the first one is 15 minutes, and I call it speed dating. We do it on Zoom, and not everybody makes it through the first 15-minute speed dating conversation. And because usually after I ask those questions, I know whether or not I ever want to spend time with them again. And I know that sounds terrible, but I can usually tell. But I also use WiseHire. And that's something that Workman recommends. I like it because it discs everyone in the beginning. And if you're going to be interviewing a lot of people, which I do recommend going into this time of year, it is an incredible time to find agents and administrative people for your team. Everyone's getting their 1099 right now. They're coming up pretty soon, and they're deciding whether or not they want to stay where they are or they want to find someplace new. They were either happy or they weren't. Right. So it's a great time. And WiseHire is designed to make the process as seamless as possible for you. When you put the ad in there, which they have a bunch of ads in there for buyer agents, listing agents, regular agents, transaction coordinators, listing managers, whatever, they're already in there. And they go out to all the sites, LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever. And when people apply, it requires them to answer questions that you choose. Are they currently licensed? Are they in process of licensing? You know, whatever, how much experience do they have? Okay, starts there. Then it requires them to put in a resume. Then it requires them to do the DISC assessment. If they don't take the DISC, I don't even call them. It is a requirement.
Yep.
Okay. The next thing it does is when they take the DISC, it's going to tell you whether or not they're a good fit for the role that you put in. Now, that's not the end all be all, like Jason said. I don't hire and fire specifically to that, because one of the best listing agents in the country that I know says he'd make a really great administrative assistant. So he's really one of the best listing agents I've known in my entire life. Okay, so I don't always go by that, but I do like to see the DISC because it tells me a little bit more about them. So we're going to speak about that in a second, Jason, because of what you said. You know, you don't know much about it. So I like it because if anybody here uses Trello, which I do use, WiseHire is done in that format. It brings them in on the left-hand side of the screen, so you know which applicants you got new. Then you can move them across the board based on whatever categories you put. So I create my category. It gives you some basics in there, but mine I changed to my WHO method category. Interview 1, interview 2, interview 3, and what that looks like. Right. And so even for Workman, I interview people for my clients, and it'll say where they are in that step as well. Like if I've done the interview with them. So it helps you keep track, especially if you get 200 applicants, which by the way, can happen at this time of year. So now you have everything kind of lined up. You can create templates, which I do, because I give people access to my Calendly link. So I'm not calling everybody to book an appointment. I'm saying, thanks so much for applying. Here's access to my Calendly link so you can book a 15-minute session with me for our first Zoom call for the appointment, right? That allows them to book based on my availability, because who's got time to call that many people? Right? So that's why I like WiseHire. It keeps everything organized. You can make notes. You can keep up with how many applicants that you have, right? And it gives you access to their disk inside the system. And now you can see all of these things in one fell swoop versus all of this stuff being an email or, you know, posting jobs at rickjihateen.com or whatever it is that I had, you know, he'd been doing previously, which made me want to rip all of my eyelashes out. Okay, so I do recommend WiseHire. The other beautiful thing, there's no contract. So if you want to run the ad for 30 days and turn it off because you got 900 applicants and you're like, dear God, how am I going to make it through this? You can pause it. So you don't have to keep paying every month, which I've done. Like if I get a ton of applicants and I'm like, whoa, Nelly, let me make it through the ones I have. I pause it. Everything stays inside your system during that time. It doesn't go away. You can continue to see it. And then you're like, oh, okay, now I got everything caught up. I want to turn the ad back on. And you can run as many of them as you want in that time frame. I almost always have a buyer agent, listing agent, and full-blown agent running at any one given time. And for anybody that has multiple markets, you can run them in multiple markets, but they do charge you an additional fee. It's less, it's not the full month fee, but they charge, I think it's like $99 if you're running in more than one place, like a full second market.
I'm sorry, this is WiseHire. You said that you can pause and it
Yep.
holds everything. Okay.
Yep, WIZE.
Oh, Z, Wise. Okay.
HIRE. Yep, go ahead.
Elena, thanks for that. I've used WiseHire to hire an admin and I thought it was great. And I did that. I got a ton of responses and I paused it. So WiseHire is definitely a good place to be. Would you be willing to share your job postings for buyers agents, listing agents? Would you be willing to share those with us to see what you post?
Yeah, I have the Workman ones in there. You're gonna just base it on ours.
Mhm.
I'll be honest. I mean, I tweak them. It's gonna depend on what you're looking for. I'm pretty particular. You know, I know, shocking, right, Kevin? So surprising. Because it's really specific to what you require. Like I'm now running Rick's sales team. So we have requirements on number of huddles required, right?
Mhm.
Daily success habits, like those sorts of things. So it's going to be very specific to you. But
Yeah.
I can certainly, hang on, I'm going to take roll call here real quick so I know who all I'm sending this to. 1 second.
Also, Selena, would you mind sharing those initial questions that you asked them within that first 15-minute interview? That would be.
Let me find my Who interview folder. Hang on 1 second. Wish my office didn't look like this right now. That's what happens. I'm actually going to be home for the foreseeable future for the first time in a while. So let's see. Let me find that particular folder on my actual screen here, and that will get us there closer. So in the meantime, the other thing I want to talk about while I'm pulling that up for you is let's talk about DISC for a second. And I'm going to share my screen. Actually, first thing I'm going to do is throw it in chat so you have it, because I threw this into my Google folder so you would have it, and just somebody open it and let me make sure that it's giving you access. Boop. Boop. Somebody click that for me and tell me if it's making sure that it gave you access to it, please. Just
Got it.
Yep. And it opened for
Yeah,
you
got it.
for DISC
It
style.
opened.
Okay. So the reason I'm sending you this is I want you to look at, now, this is not the end all be all, as I said. Okay. This is not the end all be all. I want you to understand that there are people who have different DISC styles that can be really, really good at these things. Ideally, this is what you're looking for in these roles. Okay. Ideally, you're looking for a buyer's agent. Obviously, we're looking for a high I, someone who's going to be able to connect relatively well to, you know, having I have a low I. I don't make a great buyer's agent. I just do not. It's just not me. It's not good. I don't really like to people too terribly often. It's just not good. Okay. That's what you're looking for. If I have someone who applies for a DISC, you know, and their DISC comes up and they've got a 12, I'm like, ooh, we're going to need to talk. Now, I'm going to give you some examples though. when I'm on a Zoom interview and I'm doing this, there are things that I do to test their eye. Okay? Because I'm trying to see if they're going to engage enough with a client. If they're talking to me like this on the Zoom interview, and I can barely hear anything that they say, then their 12i is a problem. Okay? So they're not going to connect really well, right? So I'm trying, and sometimes it happens, guys. This is all about learning to interview. So I'll be like, hey, I'm starting to get gregarious and I'm talking with my hands and I'm doing the things and I'm trying to get them to pull in to see if they open up. If after the end of the interview, they never did, okay, that eye is going to be a problem. They're not going to make a great buyer's agent because they're going to have, if they can't connect with me in an interview, how are we going to connect with a buyer? Right? So there are ways to test these things. If they're applying to be an admin and the eye is a 97, and the whole time they're talking, and they're flipping their hair, and they're doing all of this, that 97 eye is going to be a problem in the office. Okay? There are different things that you do to determine if those things are going to be an issue. You don't want a 97 eye in an admin. They're going to talk all day, and they're not going to get any work done. I like my admins to have a reasonably high eye because I need them to connect on the phone. I need them to be able to talk to a client. You know, I used to have someone that liked the eye to be very low for an admin because they wanted them to hunker down. But then the problem was when a client would call in, they couldn't function. It was like the clients thought they were just a dud. You know, so they were like, I need them to actually be able to communicate with people on some level. Right. And even the agents in the office said, wow, I feel like they don't care anything about us and they never want to have any communication with us. You have to think about that in that respect. So when you're looking at this, so who here doesn't know anything about the DISC at all? Anyone here not know anything about a DISC assessment? Everyone knows? Good. That's excellent. Okay. So Jason, I'm going to speak to what you mentioned. So for those of you that are joining a little bit late, and I am still looking up the other thing in the background, unfortunately, I'm only down to 2 screens. And for those of you that know me, you know how important 4 screens are to me in my life. But I'm only down to 2 right now. So making it happen in the background. Jason, part of being a leader is having to understand that you have to change in relation to the different personalities in the office. Okay, so one of the best things I ever did for myself with leading a large team was creating a binder in the office of everyone's DISC assessments.
Mhm.
Okay.
I have that. Yeah.
And when there was an issue or a problem or a communication sort of scenario that seemed a little out of whack, I'd go to the binder.
Mhm.
For a period of time, everyone at their desk had a little placard that said their name and whatever their DISC assessment was next to it, so people could communicate well. And we do team exercises so that people understand the DISC within the team, which is really important as well. That they know what it means and they know how to communicate in the style that best works with everyone. The differing personalities is actually a really wonderful thing. Okay, when you're all the same DISC, it usually creates a very big problem. Okay, the team I ran in New York, when I first joined that team, the team leader couldn't understand why nothing was moving forward. They had stayed fairly stagnant and plateaued for a couple of years, couldn't seem to break a certain ceiling. And when I popped in, I wasn't there for that purpose. Couldn't figure out why they, couldn't get past this point. And I said, I'm just curious, has everyone been DISC'd? And they had. Every single person, admin, staff, and all agents, every single person on the team had the exact same DISC assessment.
Mm.
Everybody was an SC. Anyone here know what we call SCs in the industry?
Losers? Duh.
No.
Transaction coordinators, according to your little thing.
Analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
People who have a high SC, it's analysis paralysis. Everything has to be perfect before you move forward.
And that was an SD, you said?
That's an SC.
That's
SC.
my wife. We are a great team together.
When it's really high, you struggle to move forward because you're so focused on it being perfection that you can't move forward. We love that in an admin. You want it to be perfect. We love it. They're focused on, woo, I know this is right before I click anything. Right? But when you have an entire team of it, nothing moves forward. Right? So we started hiring strategically. Boop, 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 boop. We're looking for high Ds, right? We're looking for people who are drivers. We want to make sure that, like, I have a high, I'm a DCS. Okay. So my C is pretty high, but I'm like, we're going to build it to 80%. We're just going to jump. We'll build the wings on the way down at 80%. You know, most people with a high C would be like, so I'm like, we'll figure it out. It's okay. You know, I feel confident enough because I'm like, got to get it done. At 80%, I feel fairly confident I'm going to get the last 20% on the way over the side of the cliff, right? Because it's got to get done, right? So you have to have enough D. So Jason, when you say the differing personalities, it's really important to have it on a team. You've got to see other things coming into the team and other people pushing. Okay. D is driver. That's somebody who's like, got to get these things done, right? I is influencer. That's that life of the party. That's someone who's coming in and saying no fear about having conversations and making introductions and making sure that, you know, things are happening. That's your person who's going to make sure all your client events are running and like not necessarily making sure they're running appropriately. They're just making all the introductions. They're not crossing the T's and dotting the I's. They're making sure the fun is happening at the events. S is usually someone who's keeping things stable, people pleasers, making sure the team is feeling great. Everybody's on board. We love it. All good stuff. And C is correctness and conscientious and, you know, really making sure that all those T's are crossed and I's are dotted, right? And doing the analysis. So all of those things come into play. And when you see on this list on that preferred disc style, and I'm sorry, I should be sharing my screen for those of you who maybe didn't open it up. Boop. Can you see this preferred disc styles? Everybody have it up now? Yep. Okay, good. There's a nice mix here on what we're looking for. Buyer's agents, as I mentioned, usually a very high I, right? We want them to be able to connect with people. Listing agents, we usually do see a high I as well, right? But we're usually seeing, like, your S is usually the next highest one, mid-high 50s. And D, usually we're kind of seeing it in there too, right? Showing agents, for those of you that are looking into that at any point, that's someone who's just going out and opening doors, but you do want them to have that high I as well. Not as important for the rest of the stuff because they're not negotiating any deals. They're just opening doors, but you want them to still connect. Client care coordinator, look at where we are. Now you're seeing, see, I love that they changed this. It didn't used to be this. You want the high to be at least over 60, be able to communicate with people. They're talking to clients calling in, agents calling in, things like that. This is your admin, very first person. Client care coordinator is what we call them when we don't have the difference quite yet between a transaction coordinator and someone doing something else. It's just a overarching admin. TC, we're definitely looking S&C being high, S&C being very high, but they've got the I at mid 50. Most of the time you have someone with 2 over the line. That's traditionally very standard in a disc, 2 over the line. When you see somebody with only 1 over the line, they're pretty strong, and usually it's a D. It's like a crazy high D or a crazy high I. And then occasionally you see somebody with 3 over the line like mine. Okay. When you have someone with 4 over the line, I almost always make them retake the disc. It usually means that they answered it in the way they thought I would want them to answer it and sort of gamed the system, or they had a really bad day. Something happened and it didn't answer it in the way that you thought, right? So I gave you guys all access to this. Again, it's not the end all be all, but it's there for you in case there's something that you kind of want to see and kind of speak to it when you're looking for that. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm going back to my other thing right now so I can find my Who method questions for you. 1 second, so I can pull that up. Anybody have any comments on that in the short term while I'm looking up my Who method? 1 second. I'm going to move this over here so I can still see.
Over the line is 50, right?
Yep, 50.
Okay.
Here we go. Okay, here's my pre-screening. I'm going to just give you the questions here very quickly. First question I ask, what was it about the position that drew your attention? What was, and these are all in the book, by the way. What was it about the position? I'm curious. I just want to know. What was it, depending on the name, right? That's usually the first question I ask. Second question, what are your career goals? What is it you want to do when you grow up? You know, sometimes I ask that. Oh, Jason, the Who method. That's the book.
Oh, yeah, I know it.
What are you really good at doing professionally? Is the next one. What are you not good at doing professionally, or what are you not interested in doing professionally? Very interesting answer to this question sometimes. A lot of times people don't have an answer. I sit quietly until
Wait,
they
yeah.
answer.
I'm gonna jump in real quick. I once asked, and I was a complete dumbass. I once asked, name your hardest day, and I forgot to say at work.
Oh, no.
Holy crap. Yes, he actually, it was tragic. Like they almost lost their kid. And
Oh,
I'm like, I forgot. It just like I was there, now I'm relating and I'm hugging them and I'm hearing all of this and they're tearing up. And I'm just like, all I had to do was remember to ask at work.
ouch.
Or else you're going in with family. Yep.
Oh, ouch. Okay. Oof. Yikes. Okay, so very interesting answers to what are you not good at doing or what are you not interested in doing professionally. Take that, usually what they answer, especially if they're an admin, pay attention to that. Okay, who were your last 5 bosses and how will they each rate your performance on a 1 to 10 scale when I talk to them? Listen to this as well. Okay, because they're going to give you every justification for why they would rate them whatever way. That's my 15-minute speed dating Zoom call. Based on that, I tell them, thank you so much for the time today. I'll be letting you know if we'll be scheduling our next interview, right? I record them all. A lot of times it's because I'm doing it for someone else and then I prepare all of my calls together, or sometimes it's because I want to go back and watch it again because I want to see, you know, kind of how they responded, things like that. And I create folders for everyone because typically I'm doing 4 before I move forward with someone. So that's the very first one. The full interview, and again, these are all in the book, is the same questions for every single thing in their resume. And we work from oldest back to newest. And what were you hired to do? This is being recorded, so you guys can go back and do this later if you want. What accomplishments are you most proud of while you were there? What were some low points during this job? This one's always very interesting. Who were the people that you worked with specifically? And what was it like working with him or her? What will he or she tell me were your biggest strengths and areas for improvement? How would you rate the team you were a part of on an A, B, or C scale? If they don't say A, if they say B, I say what would make it an A. If they say C, I would say what would make it a B. And I get those answers. What changes did you make while you were there? If they're an admin or if I'm looking for a team leader, did you hire anyone, fire anyone? Those questions come up if it's a, you know, a higher level scale. And why did you leave that position? And we do it with every job, oldest to newest. Let me tell you why these are important. They will tell you everything. I don't have to ask any of those things that I'm not allowed to ask because you're going to learn everything about them. I will tell you at the end of these interviews, I know how many kids they have. I know if they've been divorced. I know everything about every bad job. I And I don't ever ask those questions because legally I'm not allowed to, but I tell you, I will know all of them because they open up in the midst of this. What I also look for, and this is what I'm going to share with you guys, is when you keep hearing the same thing about every past employer, a negative conversation, they micromanaged me, they did this, whatever, because you've gone through every past one and you start hearing repetition, it's telling you a story. And the only way to do that is to ask the exact same questions for every past job to start hearing the repetition. And that's why the design of it is so important. Okay, that's what it tells me over time, without asking it directly and them not even realizing that they're sharing it in that way. They don't even realize that they've said the same thing over and over again. But I am. Literally, I'm over here writing a big no on the sheet I'm writing on over here and like, you know, that's kind of the next thing for me, because now they've told me something without realizing that they've said it, right? Okay, so after this one is typically when I have someone else on the team interview. Now it's about the culture fit. Are they a cultural fit? So Bernadette, it would be, okay, I'm going to pass this on to Bruce. Okay. Jason, I might pass it on to my wife. I might pass it on to, if you've got agents on the team already, I've had them take them to lunch. We're going to have a session, right? We're going to introduce and say, hey, just take them to lunch. Let's talk about it. And then the last one is, if at all possible, you have them come to a team meeting, even if it's on Zoom, you have them participate, jump in and say, is there a mix here? Or did they seem engaged? Were they listening? Were they instead like this on their phone the whole time that we're presenting? You're watching the whole time. This is why I'm saying it's like 4 times, like 4 touches before we move forward with somebody to see. If they're an admin, I highly recommend a working interview if you can do it. Have them come in, give them activities, have them answer the phone after they've gotten, you know, the opportunity to see someone else answer the phone if that's the case, right? And a lot of people pay for that. They will say, hey, I'll have you come in for 4 hours. I'll pay you whatever the, you know, the rate is for during the time, and we're going to give you activities to do. You know, working interview is really important. You start to see kind of what that looks like inside the office and how comfortable they are picking up the phone or doing activities, things like that. So there's the reason, you know, sometimes I'll have an agent or an admin say, this is really taking a long time. And I'll say, yeah, it's really important to me that we're the right fit. We don't take just anybody, you know, so, you know, it takes as long as it takes. Isn't that important to you? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, okay. By the way, no splits discussed at all until after the second full interview. None. I just had somebody, Rick and I were interviewing somebody, and on the very first call, she asked, and he started to go. I was like, no, we don't talk about splits. I was like,
How do you say that though?
that's exactly what I said, just like that.
Literally, yeah. I say that exact same thing as well. I just say, hey, we're going to talk about it on your 3rd interview. I send you home with the contract. You could read it over, and then we're going to talk. But that way, I learned that one interview because I gave it in the very beginning, and they're like, no, forget that. They didn't understand the why. They didn't understand everything we were offering. But as well, why are they coming to me? They have to learn that. They have to, in essence, they have to hear themselves say, you're right. I haven't sold anything in 3 months or whatever it is. Or I just want to be part of this team that's a producing team. And they have to hear themselves say that.
So you have your first 2 interviews to fill each other out, and that way they may be more receptive to the split, and you are comfortable with giving them that information because you liked them the first 2 interviews somewhat.
Even like, honestly, I so have them by the end of the 2nd or 3rd. Splits aren't even a question. They're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very rarely do I have a problem getting anybody at that point? Because we've had so much conversation. I've gotten to know them so much through the interview process and what they're looking for and what they want. And they've gotten to know me through that. And then especially if they've gone on the team, like sometimes I don't even talk about it after the second one, because if they don't bring it up, I'm not bringing it up. I'll have them say, oh, we're going to move you on to the third interview, or you're going to go with the team and whatnot. And at that point, I don't bring it up if they don't bring it up. I let them go to that point. They go to the third one and now they're engaged, right? So by that time, they're like, oh, I just want to be a part of this. You know, so you're pulling them in, but you're also making sure that they're right for you. All right. All of that. And you're going to that agent who took them to lunch. What did you think? How did you feel? Will they fit? Did you get any red flags? Did they say something that your antenna went up, whatever that is. And that way you're thinking like, and guys, I've turned people away. I mean, I don't take just anybody.
This is a listing appointment. I feel like this is, you're going through it, you're meeting them, and then you sold it so well that at the very end, they're like, yes, work for us. They're not asking you, hey, are you 2%, 3%, 6%? Where are we at? They're like, we need you to work and we want you to work now.
So this is why, I mean, it seems like you're like, oh God, this is so much time. Who's got time for this? I want you to consider for one moment bringing on someone who's a terrible fit and who sucks the absolute life out of you and kills the culture of the team in only a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, whatever it is. And the time and energy lost in that versus taking the time to bring the right person on. Right? Lessons learned for me. Like bringing people on and being like, oh, numbers. We just need, and there was a period of time where I was like that because I was being given big goals, like just bring more people on, Selena, just bring more people on. And I was like, oh, I'll just take them all, just bring them all in. And then I was like, oh my God, these people are sucking the life out of me. And they come on and they bring a negativity and a terrible culture and just the complaining and this and that. And all of a sudden it was like the team was just like, bleh. It was awful. It was terrible. And I thought, wow, I would rather just bring on 2 or 3 incredibly amazing people that I know fit the cultures, fit the values, want to do the work, and really embody what we want here, and bring them on over a couple of weeks of really going through the process, than spend my time with these other people. Right? So I've got a couple of questions here in the chat that I want to hit. Okay, so Kevin, apparently I'm a client care coordinator. So I said this at the beginning. One of the best listing agents I know in the country is a 97S and a 99C. Okay? Best listing agents I know in the country. Now, you can learn to turn on any other part of the disc, right? So most people think I have a high I because I recruit, I talk on stage sometimes, all of these things. You would think I have a high I, right? I'm sitting here talking to all of you. 12 guys, because you can turn it on. Okay, you can turn it on for however long you need to, however it does drain you. The longer you turn it on, the more your energy goes down. Right? But you can turn on anything that you need to for any period of time. It's a learnable skill.
Yeah, my driver is about a 2 or a 3.
Okay. That's okay. That's all right. It's a learnable thing. This particular gentleman, it was a theater major, so that really helped him.
Oh, there you go.
See? But you can do all of those things. What makes an SC a great listing agent, by the way, is your ability to do the research on the pricing of a home. More so than other people. More so than other people, right? You are very focused on making sure that you are giving that seller the most accurate information. You're probably better at pulling comps than most people.
Yeah, I'm a 99 a 99S and a 98I, and then like a 49 or 50C.
Okay.
So
I would assume that you're really great with buyers too, huh?
I have no idea. I don't have any.
Never? Have you never had any?
The only buyers I've ever had, yes, I've had two. One was a friend. One was a friend.
Did
and
you like
then,
it?
No, I hated it.
That's interesting. Thank you for your
Hated
honesty.
Managing people is my jam, though.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyways, that's my superpower.
I love that you say that that's your superpower.
Yeah.
So, any other feedback from what we just talked about? Anybody have anything that they want to add? I know I just threw a bunch at you. I can't stress enough how important hiring is.
I have a question. So say you're hiring somebody for transaction coordinator, and through the interviewing process, you find out that they might make a better admin. Do you talk to them and see if they'd be willing to do something else?
Yep, I've done it plenty of times. So if I see somebody come through, and sometimes it's somebody applying as an agent, right? And I see that they have a great disc for something else. And one of my favorite things to do is if I do see an agent that has, and I see them a lot, that has a much better disc for that, and they have not had any success as an agent, I'll ask them if they've considered the possibility of doing administrative work in real estate. And if they liked the paperwork, if maybe like they only did 2 or 3 transactions, I'm like, hey, what'd you think about the paperwork side of that stuff? And I dig into that a little bit deeper, because sometimes they make an incredible admin and they love that. Right. And they found that, oh, I hate cold calling, and oh, I hate the people. I hate this, I hate that. Right. Dig into it a little bit more. Because
Sorry.
no, go ahead.
That was my next question. So you have maybe an admin come in and work, and you pay them for however many hours to see how they do. Would you do that with a buyer's agent to see how diligently they call the leads that you put them on for the day? Maybe have them call 50 people and pay them for however many hours and see how they actually do.
You can opt to pay them, or you can say it's just part of your process. Create a pond, that's what we call it, a pond of leads, and see how they do. Typically, like even for me with hiring a newbie agent, let's just say it's somebody who's newly licensed, no one is on lead flow, meaning in our regular rotation of lead flow, until they've actively converted something from our pond. Like they do not get in lead rotation until they have access to the pond, and we'll have hundreds of leads in there. And I'm like, just because I'm not worried if they're going to break anything in the pond, because those are old leads that have been in there. I'm like, hey, go fish the pond for a minute. And when you've converted something and, you've actively made contact, plus I'm teaching them to use the, KV Core, and then they have to update and document calls and all of that stuff. Then they get lead flow, so it's like a really good way to teach a newbie.
Okay, cool.
Real quick, what do you mean by lead? So they're only, I just got a bunch of leads over the weekend. We threw a big event, so we have a bunch of leads. I do have one newbie agent that I'm giving her leads, part of that pond. I added them, and they're allowed to go fishing. So you would have said no, you have to use your old leads, or what do you? Yeah, explain.
Yeah,
sorry.
so like so there's a couple of different ways you guys can run this on KV Core, especially you're putting your leads in KV Core or something.
I'm using Follow Boss, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, either one, yep.
Yeah.
So like we have lead rotation, right, inside the system. So not everybody's on lead rotation. We have one agent that works full-time doing something else. So she's opted out of rotation. She's not on rotation. She's generating leads from her own, holding open houses, etc. Then I have a very, very new agent. In lead rotation, she's only at 5%. You can change your percentages inside of KV Core to how much rotation they get. She's very, 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 very new, not very available. So instead, I have a pond that she can go into and fish, right? Fish the pond. And she's only getting 5% of rotation, meaning it's going to everybody else significantly more and going to her just at 5% of rotation, right? Until convert.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so I'm also on Zillow. Like I needed the tax write-off, so I did Zillow and Realtor and all these. Anyway, I've been like, I'm going to give her only 300K and under, which I'm just like, well, good luck with those. All of our leads are higher.
Yeah, so we typically do that with a newbie because one, I'm not worried if they screw it up on an old
Right.
lead that's been in the system for a while. But I'm pleasantly surprised when they convert one. Yay! It's a win. It's a win.
Right.
So, and I'm teaching them at the same time. When
Okay.
when they fish the pond, they are required to document the call, update the note, change the status of the lead if something happens in there, right? So they're learning at the same time. And then when they convert, now listen, sometimes it happens, they may call all of them. Some people have a very small pond, it's 300, and they may not convert anything out of 300, right? It's possible, but I can go in and see that they did all the work. Like, okay, you've called, you've updated, I can see all the notes, and I'm like, okay. You've actively been working it for like a week, 2 weeks, whatever, and I can see all that's in there. They also have to have their full top 50 updated in KV Core. They've called all of those and made all the updates. Like there are requirements for me to see that you are actively working and lead generating in multiple ways. You're holding open houses, you're putting those indicate, things like that in order to qualify for lead flow.
That's awesome.
Same thing
great.
goes though, anybody who's actually licensed and doing great work and been in the system, like we just instituted a new lead flow that's generating quite a few leads. If they are not updating the system and they are not calling the leads in the way that I have indicated, your lead flow gets paused.
Yeah.
I see that you catch it up. If you're too busy to update the leads and call them the way that you're supposed to call them, you're too busy to get new ones.
Right.
Not the nicest boss.
All right. I'm right there with you. Right.
I'll
Yeah.
just give it to somebody who isn't as busy. And
Right.
it'll skip you in rotation. So if those of you that don't know that in KV Core, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're updating things. And it's, guys, we're just teaching them accountability. And Bernadette, in answer to your question, one of my favorite things to do is hire an agent who has not been successful as a TC or an admin, because I require, me personally, all admins be licensed. There's a
Okay.
reason for that. I want them to be able to open a lockbox, take it off, open a door, all of those things. I want them to be able to answer questions about listings when somebody calls in. I don't want any gray area on a non-licensed person.
I'm glad you said that because Bruce and I were talking about, I said, so do we want license so they can talk about whatever comes up? Or are we worried that they're going to want to bounce and go get a bit bigger piece of the pie? If they're licensed, you know what I mean? And then we're stuck training a new admin.
It happens. It does
But it's
happen.
worth it.
It's easier to take someone who was licensed first, who maybe wasn't as successful, that wants to be an admin, than it is to take someone who is an admin that then gets licensed, because then they think the grass is greener on the other side.
Got it.
So I would say if you're going to go one way, go license first and maybe not quite so successful and decided that they like the admin side. And it's up to you. In the past, I have paid for the MLS fees for my admin because I'm asking them to do that. I love it because it means if I desperately need them to go sit at an inspection or whatever it is,
Mhm.
I can have them go do that.
Okay, cool.
So you'll pay for the MLS and super key access. Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah, because it benefits me. It's a huge, huge plus. Like, oh God, I'm desperate. I need somebody to go open this door.
Mhm.
Boom, you can go open this door. It's super helpful.
Okay, good to know.
Anything else? Wow, we had a good call today. I'm trying to think if I answered everything. I think my big, go ahead. I see a question.
What was the personality for the analysis paralysis? Was it an SD?
Let's see. Only if it's crazy high. It's not a bad one to have, guys. It's just like if it's crazy high, typically you're going to see somebody struggle to move forward unless something's perfect.
What about DS if it was the other way around?
You don't usually see a whole lot of DS. We say that's somebody who likes to kick puppies and then, and then apologize about it later. So,
Wow.
people, high Ds get a bad end of the stick. So my husband and I are both high Ds, but we joke about who's the biggest D in the house. It is me. Somebody's got to win when you're both high Ds. It's because Ds are drivers and usually they're seen as overbearing. or or a lot. You don't usually see a high D and a high S, because the high S is usually someone who's trying to make sure that everybody's happy and a people pleaser. So usually that S is a little bit lower. Go ahead, Jason.
I'm a high D, high I, and a high S. They're literally right there. And then
Interesting. You struggle.
I do. I'm really driven and I want to help people.
Yeah. So same thing. It's like I'm very, very driven. But things in my past have made me a rescuer.
Yeah.
You go in and you want to rescue people. And it's a struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask, because I mean, I feel like the driver personality, like there's pretenders out there now. There's pretender drivers now that we have to get past or oversee, or I mean, is there some practice that you're doing to kind of figure out how to get past that pretending driver mentality?
I wouldn't say if it's a practice. I mean, I think, and I'm not sure if it's pretender. I think it's just that we are all a product of our environment in some cases, and our past can sometimes, hang on, I'm trying to let somebody in that just popped in. Our past can sometimes dictate what we become to a certain extent. And, you know, for me, I'm recently doing a lot of personal work in that respect, because Rick and Casey introduced me to PSI. For anybody who hasn't ever done PSI seminars, I strongly recommend it. I've just finished my second, as did my husband. So I did basic and just finished my 7-day life success course, which kind of gives you some insight into past events that, you know.
And I'm talking for personal, right? Because I mean, literally, and I've been doing personal work, and I was a pretender for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was a pretender driver. Maybe that's what I thought I needed to be.
I think, you know, that's what I love about the DISC. And by the way, it also gives you access to the motivators, which we haven't talked about at all. The DISC assessment in WiseHire gives you, there's a second level of DISC now that's been released in that, and motivators is another piece of that. And we can maybe go into that on another call. But if you get a chance to look at a DISC report that has motivators, it's one step further into what your beliefs and your values are that create that. Right. And so there are a couple more things that dig into that. And I do like to talk about that with applicants, because there are different pieces and parts that make us show up the way that we show up. Right. So different pieces for that. And you get to know people a little bit more when you talk about it, about what is it about us that makes us show up the way we are. Because really the DISC is just about how people see us and how we see ourselves, more so than anything. And by the way, the DISC is not forever.
Right.
You can change. Like when I worked with that person in New York whose C was so high as SC, my C went up because I knew what his expectations were. So everything I did, my C had to naturally go up, because I was like, well, if I don't give it to him with like 9,000 pieces of detail, he's going to kick it back. So you can change things as a result. So it does change. I know we only have 1 minute, and I want to be aware of everybody's time. Is there something else that I can answer?
One more.
Yep.
So I'm a boss, and I've been in real estate and title and escrow for a very long time, since I was in my 20s, and Bruce is a car guy. Well, I'm used to being the boss, right? So last year, having cancer, Bruce is now the boss, and I'm losing my fucking mind because I'm the boss, right? And I'm back in action. So when you're a team, do you share the boss role, or should there be somebody who kind of has like the final say? I don't know.
You need to have a conversation about clearly defined duties and responsibilities.
Okay.
Great conversation for your coach.
Okay, good. Oh, that's good. That's a
Read some
good
stuff
idea.
by, there's Gottman, the Gottman Institute has some really good stuff on relationships as well. That's given us a lot of clarity in my relationship. John
what was that?
John Gottman has some great relationship stuff. It's mind blowing. And I've read a lot of books on relationships and stuff. Just,
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. You might have saved my marriage.
Also be the boss of things you like. Like I'm sure he likes to be in charge of other things, and you like to be in charge of other things.
Me and my wife are a great team because we have our roles. We literally, and this is what I tell my team as well, get with lenders that stay in their lender lane, get with escrow people that stay in their escrow lane. Me and my wife, I mean, sometimes of course we support each other and do everything together, but she knows I don't do paperwork. I suck at paperwork. Once I had to do paperwork, it took me 2.5 hours for her to look it over and to say, this is wrong, this is wrong. And then I said, I'm never doing this again. And it took her 15 minutes to do.
Yeah.
So she does paperwork and she has an admin and she has an assistant. Like,
Okay.
yeah. And then I do what I do. She does what she does. And I'm sorry, I just posted in the chat, which I was supposed to send it to one person. I sent it to everybody. But there's my contact info because some of you guys are messaging me, hey, send me stuff. So there's my contact info.
So Bernard, I would start with a spreadsheet of like what you love to do, what he loves to do, and kind of start there
Okay.
and get that kind of and even start the spreadsheet with like what I hate to do and what I hate to do.
Okay. Okay. Sounds
There you
awesome.
go. Like a pros and cons list.
Yeah, I love it.
And
Perfect.
start there, and then that'll kind of start helping you guys build. But yeah, it's easier if you guys have that clearly defined so that you, especially, it will be more important for you to have it as you build the team.
Right.
Clarity. Okay.
Thanks for the.
Well, why do you
link.
want to be the boss? I mean,
Yeah.
take the time off, relax.
I feel you. I feel you. Guys, thank you for today. I'm going to follow up. I wrote down everybody who was on today. So I'm going to get you those job descriptions of just sort of the basics of what goes in. Although if you do sign up for WiseHire, they're built into the system. Like if you go in and you just type in buyer's agent, it'll be in there, but I'll share them with you anyway. So you look for an email from me later today, which is kind of the basics of what those look like. And I really appreciate everybody's time today.
Awesome. Thanks, Selena. It was
Thank you,
great.
Selena.
Thanks, Celine. This is awesome.
Appreciate it.